The poll was concluded marking El-Sisi's 2 years in office. Meanwhile, President El-Sisi, in a televised interview, hailed the awareness of the Egyptian people, adding that the country had paid a heavy price during the past few years. More details in the following report by Nile TV's Hala El-Hamalawi.
As Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi reaches the 2-year milestone of his presidency in the coming week, the Egyptian Center for Public Opinion Research, Basira, has conducted a poll to measure the Egyptian people's satisfaction with his performance. In only 1 month, approval has risen to 91% compared to 79% last month and 90% in June 2015, according to the poll. Basira attributed the increase in satisfaction to the Egypt airplane crash of late May, explaining that according to world analysts, rates of satisfaction with the president's performance increase in times of crisis. From another angle, 81% of Egyptians said that they would re-vote for el-Sisi if presidential elections were to be held tomorrow. The poll was conducted using both mobile phones and landlines on a sample of 2,600 citizens aged 18 years old and above, and covering all governorates. Meanwhile, President el-Sisi said in a televised interview on Friday that evil powers have plotted to jeopardize Egypt's stability and security, but the conspiracies were and will be always harmless as long as Egyptian people are consolidated. He also said that his main concern upon assuming office was to keep the Egyptian state stable. During the interview, which marked 2 years since el-Sisi assumed power, the president reviewed the ongoing national projects, saying that their total cost is estimated at 1,400 trillion Egyptian pounds. A total of 1,000 companies and 2 million Egyptian laborers are involved in the national projects, said el-Sisi during the interview. When asked about the role of the Egyptian armed forces in implementing these projects, el-Sisi said that the army is only monitoring and coordinating the work progress in these projects in order to make sure that the expenditure is spent on the right place. During the 2-hour interview, el-Sisi noted that Egypt is currently fighting corruption through several ways, including adopting new and advanced database for all nationals through national ID cards. As for the Egyptian youth allegedly detained on political charges, el-Sisi said that 90% of them are jailed over crime-related charges, adding that he is personally looking into the cases of the other 10%. When asked about security status in Sinai, the president said that the fight against terrorism there is taking place on only 3% of the total area of the peninsula.
While addressing the Paris conference on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict that opened in Paris on Friday, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry said a Palestinian state must become a reality and called on the international community to fulfill its pledge in this regard. More details in the following report by Nile TV's Hala El-Hamalawi.
Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry called on the international community to fulfill its pledge to make a Palestinian state a tangible reality. Addressing a conference on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that opened in Paris on Friday. Shoukry is heading the country's delegation at the International Peace Gathering in Paris, which seeks to relaunch peace talks between Israelis and Palestinians. Shoukry also expressed Egypt's readiness for the revival of the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, which called on Israel to withdraw from Palestinian territory occupied in 1967, including East Jerusalem, in exchange for a normalization of ties with Arab countries. During his address, the Egyptian minister called on Washington, Moscow, and the European Union to push the peace process towards a solution as he presented his country's vision for a comprehensive, just solution for the Palestinian issue, which he said is central for Middle Eastern stability. Shoukry said that it was imperative that the international community commits to its pledges to bring the Palestinian state out of its theoretical and legal frame to become a tangible reality the Palestinians live and Israelis coexist with peacefully. He highlighted that striking equilibrium between legitimacy and a balance of interest is a prerequisite for stability and criticized what he described as unprecedented negligence of the peace process since the 1993 Oslo Accords, whereby Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization reorganized each other for the first time. The Egyptian minister is planning to hold bilateral talks with Arab and foreign leaders to discuss the course of the peace process. The meeting in the French capital brings together the Middle East Quartet, which comprises the United States, Russia, the European Union, and the United Nations, as well as the Arab League and around 20 other countries without Israeli or Palestinian participation.
Egypt's members of parliament approved Saturday that Saudi King Salman's Sinai development program needs only to be discussed and voted on by parliament without putting it to a national referendum. More details in the following report by Nile TV's Hala El Hamalawi.
Parliament approved a report prepared by the Legislative and Constitutional Affairs Committee on a Saudi-Egyptian loan agreement aimed at developing the Sinai Peninsula in a plenary session on Saturday. The agreement, titled King Salman's Program for the Development of the Peninsula of Sinai, was signed by the government officials from the two countries in Riyadh in March. The agreement was aimed at giving Egypt $1.5 billion soft loan to help it develop Sinai and buy Saudi oil products needed for development purposes. As much as $500 million from the total loan amount will be allocated to developing Sinai in the form of building King Salman's University in Ittur city, funding a series of agricultural and irrigation projects, and upgrading North Sinai's network of roads, said the committee's report, adding that the remaining amount, which is $1 billion, will be embarked for buying Saudi oil products, which Egypt needs for development purposes. According to the report, the loan agreement is in line with Article 151 of the Egyptian Constitution that notes that the state's foreign agreements can go into effect only after being approved by Parliament and as long as these agreements do not lead Egypt to ceding part of its territory to another country. The committee said that as long as the King Salman Sinai Development Program agreement does not affect any of Egypt's sovereign rights, it will not be put to a public referendum and will only need Parliament's approval to go into effect. Parliament Speaker Ali Abdel Al said, "It is clear that the Sinai Development Agreement with Saudi Arabia does not affect Egypt's sovereign rights in Sinai in any way, and as a result, this agreement will not be put to a public referendum." The majority of MPs voted in favor of the committee opinion as expressed in its report. Abdel Al said that the report will be referred back to the Committees of Economic Affairs and Legislative and Constitutional Affairs to be discussed further, with the two committees preparing a report on the loan agreement to be reviewed and voted on by Parliament in a plenary session.
Ramadan is the 9th month of Islamic calendar and is observed by Muslims worldwide as the month of fasting. To welcome the holy month, everyone is preparing for it. Families are getting prepared by buying lanterns to their children, and shops started to decorate the streets with lanterns. More details in the following report by Nile TV's Dina Huwaydaq.
Ramadan is the 9th month in the Islamic calendar. People view it as the month of fasting. So everyone is welcoming this month on his or her way. So let's take a look to how people decorate the streets with lanterns.
شهر رمضان بيبتدي من نص شعبان نستعد له ونجهز له.
بنستعد من اول السنه عشان بنخزن قبل الموسم بشهرين ثلاثه الشغل اللي هو المصري ده. المصري كله متطور زي ما انت شايفه، كل حضرتك شايفه ده مصر.
احنا بنستعد قبل رمضان بشهر، اللي هو اليميش اللي هو جوز الهند والكلام ده والحاجات والزبيب والمشمشيه والمكسرات، الحاجات دي اهم حاجه.
في الكنافه والقطايف والجلاش والسمبوسه.
هو مش بالاكل ولا الشرب لا نستعد كده ايه لطاعة ربنا. طبعا شيء مقدس بالنسبة لنا، أول جمعة في رمضان بتبقى عند خاله، يعني يكون شهر كريم علينا بإذن الله.
we'll have a look at the Tourism magazine, which brings us interesting news related to tourists and attractive destinations in Egypt with Abir Mitwalli.
In a gala ceremony held at Sharqa Heritage Institute, the ruler of Sharqa, Sheikh Sultan bin Muhammad Al-Qasimi, honored the historic Cairo rehabilitation project with the award for the best practices for conservation of cultural heritage in the Arab world, alongside 9 other winners. Muhammad Abdel Aziz, Egypt's Assistant Antiquities Minister for Islamic and Coptic Antiquities, said that Egypt was one of 40 participants at the exhibition this year. Egypt, represented by the historic Cairo project along with the UAE, Jordan, Lebanon, Libya, Morocco, Palestine, Syria, Sudan, and Tunisia, won the award for best practices for conservation of cultural heritage in the Arab world. Egypt's Minister of Antiquities Khaled Al-Anani gave the go-ahead for a major project to retell the country's military history from the ancient Egyptian era to the present day through the opening of several historical sites to tourists as well as the setting up of new museum displays. Al-Anani said that the project involves the restoration of the ancient Horus military road in Sinai, which hosts the sites of ancient fortresses and military structures. The project includes the opening of 7 sites that will be refurbished to make them tourist-friendly, 3 of which are Qantara East and 4 in Qantara West. He explained that the project also involved the establishment of a panorama and museum displaying Egypt's military history, saying the panorama is to be built in collaboration with the Egypt Armed Forces in the area between the old Suez Canal and its newly dug extension.
Well, with this, my dear viewers, we come to the end of this episode of our program Inside Egypt, during which we've brought you the latest political, economic, and also social events that are taking place in Egypt. I hope you've enjoyed being with me. Wait for me next Sunday. Until then, it's goodbye.